Hey there, health lovers. Welcome to The Scoop, where we serve you straight nutrition talk, one scoop at a time. I'm Rachel. I'm a dietitian. I'm a wife. I'm a mom of 2 busy boys, and I am a big fan of making small, healthy changes that can lead to big results. So grab your coffee, your water bottle, or even your afternoon snack and settle in. We're about to dive into today's scoop. And trust me, these simple tips are going to make healthy living feel a whole lot easier. Let's get started. Any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views of Live It Up or its affiliates or parent company. Heyo, health lovers. Welcome back to The Scoop, serving you straight nutrition talk, one scoop at a time. And today we're talking about the 80-20 rule. We live in a world where perfection is seen as the ideal, where we feel guilty for veering off just slightly of our intended course. But perfection is nearly impossible, and it absolutely should not be the ideal that we strive to achieve. Picture this. You've been hitting your goals all week, being super strict, working really hard to reach them. The beginning of the week, you feel strong. But by the end of the week, you've had to deal with so many temptations that by the weekend, your willpower has tanked and you're like one temptation away from binging all the foods. And then you do.
Same old junk food, binge, junk food, nap.
And maybe it's just a cheat meal. But then you say, well, I'm already off course. Might as well just eat this yummy snack. And then it turns into, I guess I'm already a failure, so I'll just restart on Monday. And then Monday comes and goes, and that was that.
What was that?
This is why the flexibility of the 80-20 rule is so important. Being able to maintain 100% of the time is nearly impossible, but maintaining 80%?
Oh my God, what's happening?
For all of the time is where your staying power comes from. Having a flexible mindset allows you to adapt to different situations, makes it easier to bounce back from setbacks. It helps you avoid feeling deprived. It helps you maintain motivation and ultimately be successful in the long run. So what might this look like in everyday life? So if you are trying to follow an 80-20, that might mean that you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner all planned out. You have to make sure you plan that snack because you know that your afternoon slump is coming and you don't want to fall off by eating just something random.
I need my snacks. Do you have my snacks anywhere?
Snacks?
I always have snacks in the car.
It might mean that you have planned your meals and that particular snack out, and that you are also having a small treat after dinner. Maybe you also have a small treat after lunch. This would be your 80-20, because in this way, you are allowing yourself to get the nutrients that you need, and those bigger meals are planned out so that they're the macros that you want, but you're also allowing yourself to have a little bit of something sweet, maybe a couple chocolates, maybe a small bowl of ice cream, maybe...
Of course. But maybe.
Maybe you're a salty person and maybe you're like, no, I really want some chips with my afternoon snack. Now, I also want you to plan it out. Like if you're doing your 20% willy-nilly, you won't actually know what's happening, right? So anything might happen, and then the 20 might turn into 30, and then it might be 100, and you've lost track. Make sure you pair it with something else. Make sure you've had a meal, like say you're having the chocolate, right? Make sure you have a well-balanced meal before so that you feel satisfied, so that you have the amount of chocolate that you want, and it's a small amount, and you're feeling satisfied, and you can leave it behind. You're not going to keep going back for more. If you have chips, don't just eat them alone, because then you end up eating the whole bag. If you have chips, don't just eat them alone, because then you end up eating the whole bag. That's not 20% of your day. 20% might mean you have a serving of chips, or maybe for your body, you can have 2 servings, and you pair it with like something that has some protein in it, maybe a fruit, so that it's a part of a balanced snack. So that's how you can think about 80-20 in terms of your day. I actually recommend thinking about it in terms of one day instead of looking at a week, right? If you were going to do 80-20 in a week, which some people do, that would mean 80% of the time, like Monday through Friday, you're strict, but then on the weekends, you give yourself a ton of leeway, and that's considered your 20%. The problem with this type of mindset is that it's really easy to go off track when you have to think so much about the flip, when you have to be so strict and then you say, oh, I don't have to be strict today. It might turn into a cheat weekend, which actually could be thousands of more calories than you would have gotten extra than if you had done 80-20 on your day-to-day. So I really want you to be aware of what your personality is. Can you handle having your whole 20% be on a weekend and not go wild? Or do you feel like if you're prone to going wild, maybe you need to have that structure in your day-to-day life instead of looking at the total week? What would this look like during the holidays?
It's not the holidays without Chinese food.
Now, during the holidays, we often give ourselves a pass to eat whatever we want, whenever we want. And then that's why the holiday 5 pounds normally happens. Now, instead of thinking about it like that, I want you to think about like maintaining your structure during the holidays. You don't have to gain weight during the holidays. You maintain your structure of, your set meals. And then maybe, let's talk about Thanksgiving, for example. You work up to Thanksgiving, you're eating your structured meals. You're also having like that 20%, a little bit of something delicious after dinner. And then on Thanksgiving, you make that kind of part of that 20% of your whole week, right? You want to go all out? Sure.
Knock yourself out.
That's fine. I still recommend that you stop before you get too full, because Thanksgiving full is very uncomfortable. And there are sometimes like regrets after that. So you want to think about eating so that you're happy and you're eating all those foods that bring you joy and you're being social with family or friends, but that you're also not paying for it later and feeling poorly physically. Thanksgiving Day, I recommend you still have at least breakfast as a set meal with like protein and fiber, and you're getting the foods that you need. And then you bank some calories for Thanksgiving dinner. And then the next day, I want you to go back to your 80-20. Don't be like, oh, I ate too much, I'm going to skip all the meals, because that turns into cyclical overeating, because then you're super hungry by the time that day ends and you overeat, and then it's really hard to get back on track. So after the holiday eating extravaganza, I want you to go back to your strictness. I want you to say, okay, 80-20, today, that's it. Like, I'm going to have leftovers of Thanksgiving, but it's going to be in like the portions that my body wants, that my body needs, not that like my mind wants or needs, right? Because our mind hunger and our physical hunger, they're not always on the same page, sadly. So that's how you can think about the holidays. You don't have to be super strict. You don't have to avoid the foods that you love and that you get, once the holidays roll around, but you do want to be mindful. You do want to be aware of how much you're having, and then going back to your normal eating pattern after, and not just, restricting after, which doesn't always lead to the best outcomes. You could also think about it as 80-20 in that specific meal. So let's say like Thanksgiving meal comes around. Maybe you're like, I'm going to eat all the foods I love, but I'm going to eat them in a way that isn't overeating. So maybe that's where your 80-20 comes into play. Maybe you're being like more intentional about that meal. So I want you to go in with a plan. It's always important to think about like what works for me on a day-to-day basis. What does my whole week look like? And think about your personality and how this 80-20 would work best for you. But you have to be very intentional about it. If you're thinking 80-20, think about, do you have cravings during certain times of the day, and why? When are you more likely to just choose any food that works? Is it the afternoon? A lot of people have an afternoon slump where they're just like, give me the coffee, give me the sugar, let me get through the rest of my day. But really what your body is asking you to do is say, bring your blood sugar back up. You've been working, you've been using brain power. It is important to fuel that. The time between lunch and dinner is long, normally at least 8 hours for most people, 6 to 8 hours. That's a long time to go without eating. Our body actually naturally needs food about every 3 to 4 hours. So yeah, you're hungry in the afternoon for a reason, and I want you to be intentional about that. For me, when I work with clients, I find that most of the problem areas in someone's day is the afternoon or in the evening. Because the evening, you have dinner and then you relax. And when you relax, that's typically when emotional eating tends to happen. All the emotions of the day catch up to you. You're at home. There's really no one keeping you accountable at that time. So it's easier to just kind of sit on the couch with the foods that you love and overeat them. I want you to think about why you're actually having that craving. Was there something emotional that happened during the day?
Hey, you want to do some stress eating?
Some intense interactions that you went through and that you are eating in response to that. I want you to say, what else can I do instead of eat in response to this emotion, and start to build new links. Start to say, okay, I'm going to read a chapter of my favorite book, or I'm going to go for a really quick walk around the house to get my mindset in a different place. So work on that. Don't just let the cravings drive your 20%. Be intentional about your 20%. You'll definitely feel better about it. You're going to be more satisfied. So make sure that it is a structured 80-20. Don't leave the 20 up to chance. So it's important to maintain balance. You want to think about what that structure is. Make sure that you are having the protein that you need, the fiber at every meal to help keep you satisfied, and then, the healthy fats. There's balance. You want to think about everyday successes and doing a little better than you did the previous day or the previous week, and build up. It's not about perfection. It's about successes in small ways. So your 80-20 might start out as 70-30, and you might work up to 80-20. And maybe you're like, I could try 90-10. You could try that. But if it feels too restrictive, go back to 80-20. I mean, everyone is different. Everyone's going to react a little differently. Let's talk micro habits. Where do you think the 80-20 fits for you?
Best I can do is a corn dog and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Do you think it would even fit for you at all? Is that something that sounds good? Now, if you're someone who tries to be really strict and then it's too much for you and you go off the rails, 80-20 is probably great. Some people get nervous with this flexibility because they're worried that their 20 will expand to, 50 and then 100. But if you start small, if you start with some small successes and you build upon that, and you know that you are human, and you remember that you are allowed to make mistakes and then build upon them, the 80-20 is going to start to feel more natural. What are you going to do this week to help you feel like you are more satisfied, that you are getting a little bit of those foods that you love, but you're also being more intentional about the rest of your day? Like 80% of the day, you are on target. Write it down. Write down what you want to achieve, because if you don't write it down, it's not going to happen. All right? Let me know. Do you have any micro habits on the 80-20? Do you think the 80-20 will work for you? Let's talk about it.